Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Man podcast. This is episode number 15. I'm here today with one of my closest friends in the world, Renny Doyle, who is the godfather of detailing, we'll call him. But, he's someone that has had a lot of influence in my life and someone that I'm proud to call a friend. And so welcome, Renny. Appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Kevin, thanks, man. Boy, that's an introduction. We go back.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. It's unreal to think that now we go back a long ways in the industry, a long way.
Yeah.
A lot of years.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I appreciate that you've been there since kind of the beginning of me becoming more of a forward-facing person in the industry. So that's been a lot of things.
Well, I'm 10 feet away from your belts.
Nice.
Yeah, 10 feet away. So
nice. For those of you that don't know, I make one of my brands is called Detailer's Helper. It's a tool belt that I made for the detailing industry, and so that Renny has been a great proponent of that, and we've had an opportunity to work together on that. But give me your background. You talk about business background, but I'm really interested in the man that is Renny Doyle, because that's something I think because we always talk about detailing, right, and detailing business and that kind of thing. But you're much more interesting as a man, I think, that even as a kind of the detailing figure that you are. Not that they're mutually exclusive, but you do some really cool stuff and have built some things. So kind of give me your background and obviously include everything with the business side of it too. That'd be great.
You bet. Well, I can't be a man without giving credit to two women. My mom and grandma, was born into kind of a weird situation, like a lot of us were. Didn't have a dad around, and those two ladies worked their booties off, and it was not easy to get me through it. Special ed, I know this word's not acceptable these days, but I was diagnosed as being retarded.
Oh, wow.
I had a severe learning disability, they said. Wasn't going to amount to much. 2 months later, I met one of the biggest saviors of my life, Mrs. Johnson, sixth grade teacher. I was at a first and second grade level at everything going into sixth grade, way behind. And she figured out that I had this thing called ADD that our school didn't know about. And they said I wouldn't be able to pass the high school test, probably wouldn't be able to get out of junior high. And not only did she get me through sixth grade, I passed all the junior high and high school competency tests when I was in sixth grade. I didn't have to take them in junior high or high school. I was alphabetically dyslexic. And, so it was women that made me a strong man, but very strong Italian women. And so I owe everything to them.
So is there how did they teach you how to be a man? Because I mean, honestly, it's hard because we're made differently.
We are.
So what kind of, and I kind of grew up with a single mom, sort of. She was completely absent, but in general, and she would have no idea how to teach me those things. So I'm curious how your mom and grandma did that.
I'm going to say the word blessed is that my grandpa died right after I was born, and he was a mafioso. He was a capo in the DiPolito family. So she had been tough. She came up through. She had two really. I'm really short, 5'8". My grandma was 5'9". Her brothers were 6'3", 6'4". Her grandfather was 7 foot.
Wow.
Big side of the family, and then we all got my father's gene pool. So she was a tough lady. She was an elegant, tough lady. And so she just told me straight out, I will lay hands on you. And as I got to be a little much, I had a World War II Seabee veteran that was in the war all over the South Pacific. And when I got a little too tough on 3 occasions, I met his paddle. And it was only 3 occasions. Each one was at least a year apart, maybe 2 years apart. But they sent me to, I got in a little trouble, nothing big. Matter of fact, it was kind of kid fun. But my grandma, my brothers were kind of going down the wrong road, right? They're 10 and 12 years older than me. And so my grandma had influence with local police officer, and they picked me up. By today's standard, it was kid stuff. I was having fun.
Yeah.
but it could have easily gone another way. So they put me in a work camp in over summer, and I volunteered to go back. I loved it. It was discipline. I didn't have it at home, not near enough. They taught me horsemanship. They taught me how to clean poop up. Clean goats. And when I was done with my time period, I asked if I could stay another one.
Wow.
I love animals, but it was really the discipline. I had strong men that back then they didn't beat us, but if you got mouthy, they put hands on you, and you learn real quick. And I'm not talking in an abusive way. I think there's so much mix up with people. When I say put hands on you, is that, they'd shake you around a little bit. They get in your face, they tap your chest. You got a full grown man when you're 13 years old tapping your chest. You don't straighten back up, something's wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah, because at that point, when you're 13, you're trying to puff out your chest.
Oh yeah,
and kind of say how tough you are, and I think the thing that, and I grew up kind of in a similar way with men in my life, and the cockiness that you have at that age, if you don't have someone to remind you you're not as big and smart and strong as you think you are, then I think that's kind of where we get, more of an entitlement society and some of the things that we face now. Right.
Yeah. And it's, along that same time frame, just a lot of it is just a collision of goodness that came together. As I had all these things going around us, we grew up in a really tough area, a lot of violence, a lot of gang violence. But to me, it was where I was, and I learned to navigate around it. And I learned to get along with even some tough people. A lot of people would say bad people, is that there weren't bad people. They're just living in the environment they're in. And so, it really taught me to navigate around people skills. But, my faith was impacted is that of all things, we had a pastor move next door to us, and the family was, the structure was unreal. He worked for a organization, Crusade for Christ, Campus Crusade for Christ. And it really, they got me involved in the thing called Good News Club. And I started learning right and wrong, and they started putting in not only tough men, but people of faith that had morals and values. And, all of that stuff coming together, looking back at it, I was inquisitive. Is if I saw something that I didn't have in my life, I wanted to learn about it. And, because of my learning disability, I remember my grandma taking and getting in front of me one day, and she told me in Italian, she says, "You're a special human, but only if you make yourself special." And
I like that.
Yeah. And so basically she was saying, you've just got to pick yourself up. I'm not going to be there. And so I came home one day, I'd gotten jumped. They kicked a hole in my drum. I was coming home, and she goes, "Do you know who did it?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, I'm not going to the school. I want you one at a time to get a hold of them. See, they went after you as a group. What you're going to do is go after them independently, and you're going to go after all of them tomorrow." And it wasn't an encouragement for violence. It was an encouragement to set boundaries. And I did it. I was scared to death. And, I stopped being pushed around, but I didn't become a bully, And my grandma, if I ever bullied somebody or was rude, again, she would hand it to me. And, and then I was introduced to detailing as a way to get my grandma. She was on food stamps. I didn't want her. She was a proud woman. And I knew it was because of me that she was in that situation. And so, I went to work. I went to work at 13 years old, and I haven't stopped. And I love work. I guess some people call it work. There's been time periods is that I don't have any addictions, as in drugs or alcohol. My brothers did. State kept me away from it. But my addiction's been overworking and overthinking. And, I got it on a dimmer switch now. I've been able to put my businesses on my dimmer switch, but I can't turn it off.
Right. And so I'm curious what that quote unquote altercation might look like with these bullies, and how that went when they were separated from the groupthink.
Oh, they went down quick. They went down quick. And here's why is that my grandma got me into fitness. She got me into lifting. I played football, and she just told me straight out is once they've never been hit, they've hit people, but smack them right in the nose. That's what she told me.
Yep.
And you know what?
Yeah.
2 of the 3 became really good friends and still lifetime long friends. They never picked on me again. We defended each other. We talk all the time. And the other one met his end in gang violence not too long after that.
Oh
And
man.
so, one of them works at a local, I won't say where, at a local, not local to me, but within a couple hours. And we're in there. Well, when I got in a fight with him later on, he was still into the gangs. We came back and forth out of friendship. We got into it again, and I ended up hitting and knocked his teeth out of the front, his 4 front teeth out.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. So he has 4 silver teeth. And to this day, we were in his store one day with my kids, and he came up, and he's nice. And one of my daughters looks at him and says, "Dad, he's got silver teeth like those guys you hit." Well, that was him. And so, it was a little odd, but we've managed to take. So, I set it up. Our school was a fighting school. We were a tough football school, tough wrestling school. The violence didn't get really bad inside the school until right at the end and when I left. But we got along with everybody. It was about 80% Latino, and the rest was just a mix of everything. And my fondest memories, man. I mean, Diane's mom, my wife, when she found out where it's from, she's never really had anything to do with me since. It was.
Oh, wow.
It's a very seasoned. It's a tough area. It's known for being tough. Well, you remember the Earp brothers, Wyatt Earp and all his brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They lived there. They came across, and Morgan's buried there when he got killed at the OK Corral. And it's always attracted a little bit of seediness, a little bit of tough men, the Western side of things. But Wyatt's house still stands, and his 2 brothers are both buried there. And it's that kind of tough town. And I'm proud of coming from it.
Yeah. That's in Southern California, right?
Correct.
It's kind of, yeah. And, but not like the OC and Huntington Beach. It's a little bit different than those, than what some people might think of as the Southern California.
We took
lifestyle.
Some industry people, and they did a film, and they wanted to film my hometown, and they're looking around, and they were a little uncomfortable, but
yeah, I've been through that town. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. But here's the thing is you go back and there's still a lot of pride there, is that, all the houses are tiny, and they all have really nice cars out sitting out front. Cause that's what poor people do is, we didn't look at things for needs. We looked at things for wants once we did have a little cash in our pocket. But you know what? It's still, I could walk down most of the streets there and still feel okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have Chris go there and walk down the streets.
Or me, most likely. I probably don't need to be walking around there, but so is it still, it's pretty heavy Latino still,
It
right?
is. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And it's, it's a proud heritage. I'm still real close friends. Diane, matter of fact, funny story is that when we first got married, we lived in Idaho. We moved to Idaho. And we lived up there. I went to school up there, and then we moved back up and spent 12 years in Idaho. So we're down for a trip. I'm out working. I'm working at a local airport. Diane calls me and she goes, "Yeah, I decided to take the kids to a park." And I said, "Where?" And she's like, "Well," she goes, "right down the street from your mom's." And I was like, "Are there people out by your car?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, they're waiting for you." And I said, "You're not going to get out of there." So I called one of my good friends that matter of fact, he got killed not too long ago, gang violence. But he took his friends over there. Well, I say friends, his associates.
Yeah, right.
His associates, and they made sure my wife was okay. But my wife will go to events with me, and she grew up, entirely different, right? And she cannot believe the camaraderie and the deep faith we all have in each other, is because most of us grew up with very little, and we could count on each other, and we could count on each other greatly.
Yeah, that's a whole different type of bonding, I think. And, having that shared struggle, having to face adversities, and also having conflict with each other that then you're able to resolve. And honestly, I've said a lot of times that you can meet a guy, in his mid-30s that's just what we would just call a douche.
Right.
And like, I always say that you can always tell who never has been punched in the face.
Absolutely.
Because because there's a certain way that they deal with people that you can tell if they had been punched in the face once or twice. And again, like, yes, we're advocating violence, but I'm just gonna I'll own it. If they've had that experience a couple of times, then the way that they approach people and talk to people, changes quite readily, right?
Well, to our defense, here's the thing: is that society's got this violent. Not, there's a lot of things I can blame it on. Our kids, 3 of my 4, and the 4th one's getting ready to serve in the military. None of them are violent people, but yet if they need to bring pain, they know how to do it. And so,
Yeah.
the difference is that when a lot of us were kids, is that you settled things, and you settled things with your fist. And most of those times, I mean, you got a bloody nose. It wasn't. And most of the times, those people became your lifetime friends because you learned boundaries. And we didn't bring violence or guns, even in my times with a very, very gang ridden. I saw one stabbing at school. Now you got to remember, when I was in junior high, I saw several because it was kind of like a baby rattlesnake. They just don't know how to control their venom yet,
Right.
And so I was terrified to go to high school because our junior high was so violent. They had a day called Beat Up White Boy Day, and and thank God I had enough Latino friends. They warned me on the way to school, hey, don't go. And I remember 2 of my friends, Mike and Robbie, as I warned them. One went to school, the other one didn't. One got he got his tail licked. He got jumped. And the 2 of us went and rode our bicycles. We just stayed away. We did school. And my brother got it. One of my brothers was smart enough to stay away, and the other one wasn't. And came home, and he had a white shirt on, and my grandma would tell me that it was not white. It was covered in blood. They just beat the tar out of him. But here's the thing. Man. I think they just got it out of that violence was out of them, and they just didn't get any satisfaction. So thank God, as we got bigger and more powerful and into high school, is most of that bullshit. We knew who the tough guys were, and the tough guys didn't want to fight each other, as we already got hit by each other. And I wasn't one of them at that time. I'm 5'8". I was 127 pounds then, but by the time I was, started lifting pretty hard and got bigger, I knew how to throw it. So we took care of ourselves. And here's the funny thing is, like you said, you'll say it's violence. These same exact people I'm talking about that we went to blows with are some of my best friends 40 years later.
Yeah. It's because you develop that whole conflict resolution thing, right? I mean, it's just like that, men are driven by testosterone and, all of those factors. And I think that has to come out in some way. And having those, and that's what builds those bonds with Bingo. Other people, right? And that's why we have MMA and UFC and boxing and all of those sports. I mean, hell, every sport on earth for the most part has some element of violence, right?
Absolutely. I love hockey.
Yeah. I'm not much of a hockey person, but yeah, I can see that's like a main component of hockey, right? Yeah. Like it sometimes it feels like the sport aspect of it is secondary to the violence aspect of it.
Exactly it. And listen, I don't want to say that I'm there. I just think that there's boundaries, and now those boundaries are blurred, and we're having a lot of societal problems because nobody knows exactly how to take and deal with conflict. As you just nailed it. And so we learn how to deal with the conflict. Friends of mine that didn't, I can see them a mile away, man. I can tell you, not all my friends. And I've got a dear friend of mine that he just took it. And in life still, he's just taken it. He's kind of set down his whole life and just took what was handed to him. Man, I don't leave anything to chance. I learned that early on in the early days of my life. It's either I got to go or no go. I'm not going to leave it to chance.
Yeah, because if you were just one that kind of accepts life as what it does to you versus what you can do in your life, it's just, God, what a kind of a miserable existence, honestly. Because if you're not life and people suck. First of all, I'll just say that people are, if you doubt that, go and travel more than once by air over the next 6 months, and you will realize if you I always joke and say, if you believe that people are basically good, you don't travel by air enough.
Oh yeah,
Because that will change your opinion right away that
greatly.
that people are. But so what do you think? You're a dad of daughters, right? You have all girls like me. You have how many girls? 4?
We got three
3.
three girls, and we got a boy right in the middle of all that. So
Oh,
we
you
got,
do have a boy.
yeah, we have a
Okay.
son right in the middle of that.
I guess I've always seen the girls and what they're involved in. So you do have boys. So tell me what, feel free to comment more on what today's society looks like, but tell me what you've done with your boy particularly. And then, the daughters, I'm sure you've taught the same lesson, so we can talk about that. But to help, and how old is he?
He's 27.
Okay, so he's 27, just a couple years older than my oldest. So
Yeah.
what did you do? Knowing that he grew up in a relatively, he didn't have to worry about the same things that you did
No,
growing up.
exactly.
Clearly. So how did you teach him the lessons that you were able to learn without having to go through the things that you went through?
Good, bad, and the ugly on that, because you don't do everything right. When you got it, is not having a father figure. Is that I guess I raised my kids like I was raised, which was not a lot of empathy. Not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of. I'm not a nurturer. I found that out a little late into fatherhood. Is that I'm a builder,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think owning my mistakes. The good thing I did was I was super protective over my kids in the form of uh, what I've done for a side gig, weekend warrior job for the last 33 years. I got exposed to what humans are capable of doing to other humans, and especially
Mm-hmm.
kids. And so there's things I really wasn't protective over, and then there's things I was super protective over. Our son is. I would say that I got him in. We all of our kids did sports naturally, and they're all pretty athletic. I think our son, the best thing he did is I just, I said, hey, you ever bring fists to me, I bring fists back. And
Mm-hmm.
all honesty, with my daughter's the same way. Look at, you can't turn violent. The last thing you want to do is when there's an opportunity for a fight. I learned a long time ago. The best thing to do is walk away. If they start chasing you, run. Just get away from it all. And then if they lay hands on you, that's when you gotta respond, and like energy, is what I call it. So, I taught my kids, hey, be a happy kid, but don't be bullied. Don't allow yourself. We had bullies in school and they didn't last long. And so, unfortunately, they grew up in a time where bullies, lasted a little longer because the schools protected them. You couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. So I think with my son, as I taught him, listen, you're not always going to be the best. You got to learn to lose. He was really naturally good, so it was really tough for him to lose. I was his defensive coach for many, many years. I remember in a game, he just wasn't listening to the coach, and I pulled him out, and I benched him, for a round, and he was
Mm-hmm.
really, really mad at me. Is that I think every once in a while you got to bench your kids, and let them feel how it's going to do. The other thing is that we were on an expansion team one year, and we were horrible. We came in dead last position in the league. It was a brand new. It was a team that had been going and then restarted, and we were just, it was an inaugural year, and we were horrible. Well, the league gave out participation trophies, and when they handed them to me, I threw them in the trash. I threw them in the dumpster, and my son didn't want his, but I got in a lot of trouble for the parents because there's some parents that want their kids to get a trophy for losing, and
Yeah.
so I told them, hey, go dig it out of the trash, and it's all yours. And so there's we got them outdoors a lot. All of them are avid skiers. Outdoorsmen. They're constantly. All of them are constantly camping. All of them went. Two of them are our oldest daughter's a helicopter pilot. Our son Marine, U.S. Marine. He's on a victory squad. Went overseas. Came back. Unfortunately, he sustained some injuries, so he's retired from those injuries. But he's killing it. And he had some rough times. The reason why you probably didn't see him is he and I had some rough times, and he was
Mm.
really searching for what life was about. And I'm really proud of him now at 27. He's got his shit together, and he's really, really, I'm really proud of him. He's doing what he wants to do, and I love seeing what he am happy and him enjoying what he does. and he's chasing life. Got a wonderful, wonderful woman in his life, and I just couldn't. I mean, he's back really in what I call realistic faith mode. As he knows there's more, in
Yeah.
this life than that. And so I can't tell you he's come, 180, and he never was a bad person. We just, he just had to go out and figure out what life was, and went through some challenges I didn't go through, and I just stayed patient, and probably wasn't always. And I think I realized he was back kicking ass a little late, and when I finally realized it, I was like, oh, geez. And so I've made a point now to really tell him how proud I am of him.
Yeah, because that's something you have to let them kind of go do their thing, right?
Yeah,
They're adults, and especially neither of my girls have exactly followed the paths that we had in mind for them, but it's not to the point where we had to kind of take a break or kind of have our distance or anything like that. But yeah, you have to kind of let them go out and really search and find those things. So do you work for your search and rescue? Is that part of the sheriff's department? Is that how that works?
Yeah. So Cal Guard. And so I'm the unit I'm on is I'm actually the officer in charge of all ground search and rescue training. I'm assigned right now to a mounted unit, which is really fun because my horse Rip serves with me. So 2 weeks we're heading up to San Luis Obispo for a big SAR event. And he's going to go up. I'm going to start the process. It's really exciting. So, dogs, they use tracking dogs, search and rescue, law enforcement. Well, it turns out a lot of horses have got that same scent, is they can track as good or if not better than a dog. And Rip, my horse, is one of them. So him and I are going to start the process next in June of starting to get nationally certified in man tracking. And so it's a team effort. But it's pretty cool because he's already doing really well. But we'll give him scent just like you do a dog, and then we put a kind of a mask over his nose and mouth so he can't eat, because horses will eat as they're going, right? If they see something they want, they'll just take a mouthful and have a little snack. Well, that will kill their sensory. So you cover that up, and Rip loves people and he loves treats, and so he's been going right to the subjects. So he'll immediately, as soon as he starts, nodding his head, I drop reins and I let him go, and he'll turn on, get on scent, and go find the person. And we're in our early. We're doing all short 200-300 meter stuff right now. So we're expecting to go out and be able to find somebody miles and miles out. And the benefit of that is that, God, we can cover a lot of ground, and I can find stuff sitting on him a lot faster. I can see track. I can see evidence. I can see people a lot easier and a lot quicker on him than off of him.
Yeah, and the horses can go. It's crazy where horses can go. I come from farm and ranch family, and we live in a ranch area, so it's crazy what a horse can go up or down.
It's nuts.
In areas that literally most men, like, it would be difficult, for most guys to walk up and down it. I've never really thought about that as a scent animal, though, because if you think about it, they're a prey animal.
Yeah.
Not, and so the predators need to be able to find their prey, but a prey animal, that's their only, for a horse, other than their speed, that's kind of their only protective, ability is to smell predators from a long way away. So that's actually super interesting.
Well, it's pretty cool because Rip naturally loves, and his name's Rip. He's 2 years older than the show Yellowstone. He was not named after the character. It's his birth given. His dad's name was Rippers. His name's Rippers. We call him Rip. But he loves people, so that's a big bonus. The other thing is that horses have got the largest eye of any land mammal as per their mass. They can see about 270 degrees. The only spot they're really blind in is right in front of their nose and in back, right in front of the back of their tail. But when you're standing to their side by their leg, they're in full view of you. They can see you. And that's why even when you come up to a horse, if you put your hand right underneath their nose, they'll kind of go back because they lose it, or if it's to the side, they can see it. So, and mind you, I didn't, I was this, the name of your podcast is that I was all about helicopters. I was in and out. I've got 100 assertions into some pretty gnarly, spots, a lot of fun spots. And so but I always said at some point in my life, when I have the time, I'd love to train a horse up. And the military gave me the ability to do that. And I'm really thankful because it's changed my life.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been on a lot of horses. Horses are like, I always kind of think they're 1,500-pound dogs.
Yeah.
And the only problem with that is when a dog misbehaves, other than biting you, it's usually not going to hurt you
Right.
that badly. I was on a horse named Kirby, and we're moving cows in the winter, so it's super icy and slipping and sliding and all that kind of stuff. But this horse had an attitude. Kirby is kind of an asshole. And I knew that getting on him, and he actually tried to roll over on top of me.
Whoa.
Like he dropped one side, and I barely got out of the stirrups, and just barely got out from under him before he was all the way on his back. So that would have been a bad day on hard ice underneath it.
Yeah.
But then I got back on him, of course, get right back on the horse, and that sucker tried to do that again, and I'm pretty sure I almost pulled that bit through the back of his head.
Yep. Yeah.
And he and I got along pretty well after that. But that reminds me of kind of people, right? There's consequences and what's going on and you were talking about it with growing up. There has to be consequences for the things that you do.
Good
yeah. And if you look at how we are training, the way we train animals, if we use some of that discipline and reward, in together, then we might have a little bit better chance of saving what's going on right now.
It is. It's going to be here's the thing I love is that, doing what we do in training entrepreneurs is that we've got a mix of young people all the way up to my age, coming through. And society's, if you ask me, society's pretty screwed up all the way through now. It's filtered through. The older generation can't point at the younger generation and blame them.
Nope.
They're just as screwed up as anything. And, I think, the thing that was a blessing in the early days, how you and I originally met was, Facebook. I think that a lot of it's turned into something not so good, and a lot of people are addicted to it. And a lot of people have become, there's a lot of cowards that use it as attack mode, because they have never gotten punched in the face. They don't,
and they can't from their keyboard, right? Like if there was a way for them to be an actual physical consequence to some of the things that people say on Facebook.
Right. It's, I've been targeted before by trolls, and it doesn't bother me. This last 24 months, it was a whole new level because the attack came from within,
Oh, yeah.
And that really, it took me off guard. I just didn't expect it. Right. And so that's my nature. I'll see the best glass half full, type of a thing. But I've learned now is that you can't. You got to set the boundaries early, and then you got to keep those boundaries. If somebody goes over that boundary, you need to remind them what your boundary is. Because if you don't, oh man, I mean, it's it's a lot of people. I read something the other day, and I think with my background of coming up, and it's, here I was told I was never going to make it. I was literally told the best thing I expect to do is maybe a factory job. And when I made it to what I think is a really healthy financial position, which was pretty young, I went back to that person that told me that, which was an educator, and said, you told me never amount to anything. And I took one of my bank statements and I handed it to her, and I said, you've worked a lifetime and you're not even close to it. And I said, I'm not bragging. I'm telling you, don't destroy young people's minds.
Right.
Because, I could have been easily destroyed by that had I not had, a focal point of my grandma, and strong men around me pushing me. And I had a strong will. Some people will call it ego. And it's not, dude, I'm 5'8". I mean, I used to be pretty good looking. I'm semi.
You're like a bulldog, right?
Yeah. I embrace my age. I mean, I take care of, I'll hit it. Did part of my workout this morning, I'll finish it up. I walk 2 to 3 miles with our 15-year-old dog every day. I'll go out and ride this afternoon. So I'm super active, but the thing is I embrace every chapter of my life. And this is probably now, since we got through some attacks, is probably I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I don't mind being 57. I dig it.
Yeah, I mean, because you're like me, like it's just I mean, honestly, I really do believe age is it's just a number, right?
Yep.
Like, and obviously, there's some things that come with age, but I think so many people assign age as inevitable. I've got some older. I was telling Chris, actually, I don't know if I was telling you, but I interviewed my 92-year-old neighbor,
Wow.
who's a great friend of mine. He was a pastor for 40 years. So I'm working out in my shop. We're building this shop, and I'm working out there, and I can hear the tractor going, and the dude was out there, dragging the fields where the cows are for 5 hours out there in his tractor. And granted, he's on a tractor, but 6-7 weeks ago, he's out there cutting firewood himself. He's got his chainsaw. He's got these. What they do out here is they'll have, and I don't know if they do that there, but they'll have like a 5 or 6 20-foot logs developed or delivered to the house, right? He's out there chainsawing. He's got his little hydraulic, log splitter and stacked. And I'm like, well, how many did you do? He's like, oh, I did, I was out there for about 5 or 6 hours, and I got a bunch of ricks of wood, and, I've got basically enough for my next 2 winters and about 3 more families. And I'm like, dude, don't you? And I'll joke with him. I'm like, don't you know how old you are? So,
No.
and it's like, and I contrast that with other people in my life. They're literally 20 years younger than him. And in my mind, they've kind of adopted this idea that they're just waiting to die. I'm like, why? I mean, just die now. Like, why even bother to spend your life like that? So, I mean, 57 is not old at all, especially if you take care of yourself and you're active and do what you're doing.
It's funny because, my best friend in the world, Rich, we grew up together. He went in the Army. I went to his flight graduate. I don't drink.
Neither do I.
Something, every once in a while. Diane likes to have a rum and Coke. And so if I'm somewhere, I'll have a cigar and some bourbon, or something like that. But it's, our oldest daughter, we bought a 12-pack. She was back on leave from the Marine Corps. We bought a 12-pack one Thanksgiving. She came back the next Thanksgiving, and she goes, Dad, there's 10 of those beers, and we drank 2 of them. And I'm just not there. But Rich, at his graduation, I had a few drinks with him. Every time we get together, I have a 2-drink minimum with him. He just wants me to loosen up, right? Well, next thing I know, it's his idea of loosening up mine because I don't drink. It's 2 different. I am duct taped and tied up to a recruiter's office at Fort Rucker down in Alabama, and I take the ASVAB, and so I get to go in. I've taken some ROTC classes, so I got accepted into walk school, into warrant officer candidate school. Was taking classes, and then had a family emergency, and they didn't want to put me in the helicopters because the stress level and everything else. And the biggest failure of my life was not going back and chasing that. It was a dream I had. So at 40-something years old, I had an opportunity to the State Guard here in California brought me in as a subject matter expert within search and rescue. And then the Guard took me on, and I've been assigned to Guard units and everything else for the last 10 years. So at 40-something years old, I went in and challenged it, and I had to do 2 years. I was a private first class, and then an E4 for 2 years before I picked up my warrant officer, my chief warrant officer.
So that's the National Guard. That's the National Guard.
Yeah. So I came into the State Guard here in California and went right on loan to I've served in so many different areas. It's unreal. I'm not going to go overseas and fight a war. I know what my limits are, but to go and, I was sending troops through. I became a range manager, safety officer, all these different things during the war. I was on OP4 teams, which is the opposition forces teams training. We trained in evasion. We trained in man tracking. We just did all these search and rescue, combat life-saving. It's just been unreal, of what to do. And then, my big call, what I call is my big calling on search and rescue. We got called in for Katrina. Then most recently was the fires up Northern California. When it went through those towns, we were on the recovery team, and that I've seen a lot of messed up stuff, it's unreal, but I think I'm kind of built for it. And I got friends that are built for it, and we kind of know how to get it out so it doesn't the stresses of business and raising kids has been a lot more stressful to me than
Yeah.
seeing that devastation. But when we're up in Paradise and we went on that was tough. That was a tough mission because those people were just caught unaware of what was going on in a big fire, and it was unreal. So to serve, at this age in life, and right now, I mean, one of the goals I'd really, I got a master's degree in theology a few years back in world faith, and I tried out. I wanted to become a chaplain, but they said I said the F word too much.
You need that T-shirt that says "I love Jesus, but I cuss a little." My friend's got one of those shirts.
Exactly. So they actually, I just got an invite to come back. They said, "Okay, can you tone it down a little bit?" And I say, "I mean, I will. I'll be me, But here's the thing: is that when we go out, when we pulled out of Afghanistan, we had a lot of calling to go help. There's a lot of calls. Suicide rates here in California, for the Cal Guard went through the roof, and we just don't have enough. They don't trust human health professionals because they're afraid that they're going to get them taken out of the service, or if they're already out, they're going to get their guns restricted, if they're shooters. Where chaplains don't talk unless you're in danger. If we think you're going to, or if they think they're going to hurt themselves, naturally something's said. But other than that, it's not said. So, I don't know where, right now I'm committed to search and rescue. I mean, I love serving with my horse. We do a lot of ceremonial stuff. But if that's where I can serve and serve others, because I think my mission, anytime, whether it's in business or, community service or search and rescue at the Sheriff's Department, I spent over 20 years carrying a badge, both in Idaho and here, as a reserve deputy. I've gone on manhunts. I've gone on all kinds. It's just been a really freaking cool life aside from what I do for business. And what's cool about it is 90% of it's volunteer.
Yeah. Well, and I had this conversation. I've had it multiple times, but it's moving to a place in your mind and life to where you use your business and finances and everything else as an opportunity to build a life and to build the lives of others is really what makes a huge difference. I went through a time early in my marriage, early in my kids, in raising kids, where I was just a freaking moron. I had grown up like you. I started my first company when I was 12, landscape business, and it was funny because I couldn't drive, so I would hire high school kids that had a driver's license, and they would drive us. I had like 3 crews, and they'd drive us around and be able to run this business. But then by the time I was 17, I had 4 different jobs and was gone all the time. And so I continued that up through my corporate career. And I basically missed the first 6 months of my daughter's life because I was traveling 6 days a week, waking up in a hotel room and trying to figure out what city I was in, who I was doing. I was a corporate trainer. And, Michelle was like, dude, do you want to continue to have a family? Because if you do, you got to change this. And I love this story just to illustrate kind of, what can happen in blessings and that kind of thing. But I had to go to my boss and say, look, I can't travel anymore. I got to come in at normal time. I got to leave at normal time because I was working like 80 hours a week plus the travel. And so I fully expected to get fired. I was one of 27 in an internet startup. We grew it to about 250. But at that time, it was nuts because he literally gave me a promotion. I made an extra like 30% from what I was making before. No travel, had 400 employees across the world.
Wow.
And got to come in at 8:30 and leave at 5. And it was it was that time that, in my life, I felt like God orchestrated that or blessed it or whatever. But, that changed the trajectory of my entire life. And I was in the corporate world for a little while, but then I've been working at my house for 25 plus years since the kids were, pretty small.
And so much, I'm learning so much about you right now and our patterns, how they've kind of followed each other a lot.
Yep. Very similar.
It's unreal. I sold my first detailing company just because I didn't know what I was doing. I was a good detailer. I wasn't an entrepreneur. My heart was an entrepreneur at heart. I just don't know anything. right?
Yeah.
But I knew how to build relationships. I know how to sell. Two things a lot of
Yep.
people aren't very skillful at. And so I had a company buy my company out just to get me out of the way, right?
Mm.
And so, 96 grand, what do I do? What's a poor kid do? Um, I hated where I grew up at the time, and I was still there, but I was scared to leave. Is
Mm-hmm.
that it was my people. I'd go and service these people in these rich areas, and I felt, I mean, I didn't eat sushi till I was 27 years old. I just didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't think much of myself. Does that make sense? Is that
Yep.
I, I still thought I was kind of to today. I kind of feel the same way. Is that I feel like kind of a street rat. A little bit of
Mm-hmm.
a, I go and find the businesses that nobody else was really looking at. And it's worked. It's worked really
Yeah.
well. And I got into corporate America. I sold my second company which is in the window film. The first one was a detailing company. Bought a little house right around the corner from where I grew up. Could throw a rock and hit my house. Didn't go too far because I was scared to death. And I bought a Porsche, my first Porsche. Stupid move. I remember my grandma was so mad at me. But you know what, Kevin? It started a passion for the automobile, and it put me into another realm of people. I started learning more about culture at a different level. That
Mm-hmm.
stupid buy was probably one of the smart. It was smarter than the house. Looking back,
Wow.
because I used it right. I didn't misuse it. I used it as a connection piece, as a olive branch of me thinking, I had good self-esteem for myself, but I didn't think I deserved that. Does that make sense?
Right. Yep.
And I
Yeah.
still fight with that because I don't know why. I don't know why. I just still fight with I don't deserve that. It's like when we started one of our brands up, Double Black. I didn't want my name on it. Because we hired a consultant on. Bob and Dave really felt they wanted the name on it. I didn't. We hired a consultant, a friend of mine. I had the cards stacked against them. We brought in breakfast. We're having lunch catered. This was going to be an argument to keep my name off it. We had a couple. The dude had one donut. He looked at the bottles. Bob and Dave cheated. They brought pre-printed bottles out with everything on it.
With your name on it,
With
right?
my name on it. And the guy looks at it and he takes a bite of his donut and he goes, "Yeah, you got to go that way." Well, we all agreed we'd go off his recommendation. He was finishing the first donut when he walked out the door. I had to
That
cancel.
didn't take long.
No, it didn't take long. And so, and really it was a combination of two things. Me, deep down, I don't tell a lot of people this now, I have, but me not believing I deserved it,
Mm-hmm.
and me not thinking that it made a difference. And so it's struggling with that. And I wish I could go back to the 10-year-old me. I managed to stay really healthy all through my 20s. I didn't screw my life up until my 30s, the overworking thing. I was chasing skiing.
Yeah.
Even when I met Diane, man, it was all mountaineering, everything, skiing all over North America. Work was secondary. Life was great. Had a cool little house. Sold that, moved to the mountains. I just had life good. I spent 2 years at Boise State, and just did a bunch of dumb shit up there, that young people do. Not listening to the right people, letting the wrong people get into my head, that, oh, it's stupid. Why do you want to be up there? It's costing you. You could be down here making money. No, I was getting an education and learning something new. And I ended up caving, to that little devil voice, and it didn't set me back. I actually learned from that too, but 6 more months, I would have had my degree finished up. It was just dumb. It was just dumb. So.
Yeah, just because you can say you accomplished something, right? Like I mean, it's funny because I have 2 degrees. One's in exercise physiology, and then I have a second degree in business administration. And I did use my degree for a little while, and I use my, the stuff that I learned in business school. None of it applies anymore, anyway.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something to say you accomplished that. But I mean, dude, it's not like I can look at you and say, man, if you had only finished those 6 months of college, your life would have been so much different, right? Both of my girls tried college. It was not for either of them. One of them is a full-time paramedic at 23 in Atlanta, in one of the worst parts of Atlanta.
Right.
So she loves it. And, talking about the way that you view some of these traumas that you see, she's always she's always had that ability to compartmentalize,
Yep.
which is interesting because she really grew up in a, you know, upper middle class white family in Montana, right? Like there's not a lot of diversity, not a lot of struggle overall growing up, but and now she's in a very rough part and deal with that. But she's so good at compartmentalizing that, you know, because her job is to keep someone alive for 7 minutes, right?
Yep.
You know, in order to get them to the hospital. But yeah, it's crazy what education can do and kind of that path and how you run with it. My daughter-in-law is actually a drone pilot in the Army. They're up in upstate New York.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is
And
so cool.
yeah, so they're actually getting ready to deploy to Syria. She flies those, I think they call them like skeeters is the nickname. They're a trailer loaded catapult drone.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, because they take over, you know, the guidance system, the laser guidance for the Apache helicopter.
Yep.
So they shoot the laser, go over the mountain, shoot a laser on the target. The Apache stays behind the mountain, in no danger and well, moderate danger, but then they can shoot out the target from, you know, really never getting even that close to it because it'll just fly right over the mountain and do that thing. But
you'll have to share this with your daughter. So that was the airframe I was going to fly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was the airframe I was going to fly. Back then they had what was called a Scout. And the Scout, which was basically a 205 or 206, can't remember, helicopter, would sneak over the mountain. You know, the Apache's sitting here. The Scout would put its bulb right over the top, shoot that laser, and then the Apache would shoot, and then they both escape. So it was still kind of dangerous, but not, you know, not as much as that Apache going in and going after it. But it's just
right, not having to go up and get weapons, you know, weapons hot and totally visible, right? Yeah,
just exposed. Well, you know, and so it's pretty interesting because I mean, look at that. You got powerful women. I mean, doing powerful things. I mean, those are most dudes can't do what they're doing. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And so they're 1/10 of 1% on the woman's side of things, and they beat out 99% of the men. And so. You know, our oldest daughter's a helicopter pilot. She just finished up her degree in
I'm so jealous with that. I've always wanted to. I love helicopters. I'd love to learn how to fly a helicopter.
Everything, you know, it's even, you know, there's a little bird, you know, and MH6 I think is the call sign. But you know, I got so many, again, going back, and it's funny because our daughter, I used to teach her all this stuff about helicopters, right, when she was young, and we're just talking about this, and now I don't know shit. You know, I mean, it's, you know, I mean, she's an instructor pilot. She's got almost, I mean, like 1,500 hours of flight time. And, you know, she's in her 20s. But again, just like your daughters. And then we've got our middle daughters. She works with, she's an officer in the Air Force. She works with the 5th generation fighters. I'll just tell you that. And so, yeah, so it's, you know, pretty amazing. And then our youngest one, we're going to see what her MOS is going to be. She's not sure. But, you know, here's an important thing as our son. I learned here I came from all brothers, right? And I had these 2 dynamic women that raised me. But I almost didn't know what to do with our son. Our daughters, it just naturally clicked. And I told them, I'm going to raise you as a son. I'm not going to raise you to be foofy. You know, that's mom's part of it. My part is just to, you know, to teach you to protect yourself and everything else. And I look at him, man, and it's just, it blows me away. Again, I might not, glide path. They might not have taken the paths that we vision, but I look at the paths that they've gone, and I'm blown away because they just did it on their own. Influence from me, but really no help. You know, it's just been influence.
Yeah, that's strong. I mean, I think we discount. You know, first of all, people are confused about male and female these days, but we discount the importance of a mother and a father. You know, and your wife is a badass woman also, but like, and I always joke and say that God gave me girls because I don't like little boys. Like you know, every little boy at church, like I just want to kick them because they're just, because they were just like me when I was 5, 6, 7. I was a little, I was literally about to say that. I was just a little asshole that had way too much energy and, you know, just getting into everything and couldn't figure out what I want to do. But with girls, you know, and I was, you know, I think we probably raised our kids very similarly, too hard, on the girls at times. And
Yep.
I've apologized so many times for being a, overbearing dick to the girls and just being, less than empathetic. But it's funny now because, and you've met Michelle, of course, many times, and
Badass.
she's it's funny because she's like super empathetic, loves people, very gentle, but she's also a boxer and is hit. And yeah, you talk about getting punched in the face. I've held mitts for her more than, on many, many occasions. And if she misses with her right hook, like I'm out or right cross, I'm out for the day. So,
Well, she's tough. Well, you know what I love about, Michelle's just this beautiful woman, right? You just, both of us are very, very lucky.
Yep.
But there's a lot of wheels turning in there when you get talking with her. And she's such she got into the whole off-road thing. She chases life, and both you guys do. And it's just such an inspiration. I think that it inspired Diane and I in so many ways, that it's just badass to have these badass women, in your life. And, it's funny because we're at I don't drink, but the best food in town is this little bar called Murray's, just world famous here in Big Bear.
That's Michelle's dad's name, by the way.
Oh, really?
So that's funny. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I told Mike's getting to the retirement age, and I said, you cannot shut this thing down. I'm to the point where if he went to shut it down, I'd buy it. Just to keep it going. But we love it. But we're in there, and this guy, we're sitting there with some military friends of ours, some pretty big dudes, some younger dudes, mix of everybody. And this guy starts really at a very loud level, talking to his wife very inappropriately, especially I wouldn't talk to Diane like that in private.
Yeah.
And he's saying it very loud. Diane got up, marched over there, and got right in his face.
Wow.
And the guy sitting next to me is like, actually, it was somebody in our industry, and I won't mention in case, but he ended up getting up too. But he goes, "Aren't you going to go over there?" And I said, "No, watch this." I said, if the guy's stupid, he stands up against Diane, I'll put him through the window behind him.
Yeah.
And I said, but he's not going to. So he pointed at Diane, and then he said, "Go sit down." So, she did. She pulled up a chair and sat right in front of him and just looked at him in the face. And just sat there, and he goes, "What are you doing?" She goes, I'm calming you down. You need to calm down. It's okay, but you don't need to be treating her like this, or I'll get back up, and we're going to have this talk again. Is that cool? And you know what? To the guy's credit, he calmed down.
Nice.
So when we were walking out, I said, I didn't say anything to him the whole time. And I walked up to him, and I knelt down in front of the table. There's 3 individuals, 2 males and this dude's wife. And I said, "You do not know how close you came to getting your ass whipped." And he goes, "What, by you?" And I said, "Oh, no, by her." she's way tougher than I am. And I said, if I got in a fight, I'm going to have her fight it because, she's that crazy. Dude, she fell off her horse. She got thrown from her horse this last fall and broke 10 ribs on one side.
Yep, I remember.
Lived to tell. And the doctor's like looking, and he goes, "God, man," he says, "Don't you wish this were you?" And I said, "No, I'd be dead. I'd be calling a priest in for the last rites. And there's no way I just want to be dead. 10 ribs on one side. There's only 12 on that side,
Yeah.
And she broke all but 2 of them, just crushed them too. It wasn't a normal break. But, it's to your credit is I think it's a teamwork with you and Michelle. Mm-hmm. It's a teamwork with Diane and I with these kids. But I'll tell you, I think sometimes I look at my kids, proud of them as to be. I just dreamed they'd kind of fall in line with. Fell in line with the 2 generations before me. I think that I respected them, never called them old, never viewed them as old, never viewed them as weak, even as they got into their 80s and 90s. And I just don't see this even with our own kids. They just view wisdom in a different way, and it's I don't know if they'll come around, but I just wasn't there, and I don't know if it was just I don't know what it was. Having that World War II group around us when we were kids, and still young, and still those dudes didn't. Some of them were the most gentle souls in the world, but if they had to get down with it, they're all biz, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's very confusing. Sometimes I look at Diane and we look at her kids, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stop. I'm just not going to. I'm not going to. They're safe. They're doing their thing. I love them. I'm proud of them, and that's enough. We don't have to do any more than that.
Yeah, we had to adopt a safe word with my youngest because she's very antagonistic, and but she's also one of these. And we don't agree ideologically. Let me just say that. But she's also one that doesn't really know more than the narrative that she's been given. about why she believes. And I said, look, I'll talk to you about this stuff at any time. I don't, I'm more than happy to have these discussions, but I want you to have the knowledge to be able to have these discussions with me, not just repeat, whatever it is you've been given. And I think that's probably what we're facing now, is that, first of all, there's an inability for critical thinking. That's a big thing, which means that they don't value, many of them don't value, and I think this is people in general, but they don't value that as a skill set, for critical thinking. And, we've got great examples of the stupid Karens, and like the way that people our age are behaving now. Like, I'm like, you're old enough to know better. Like, what are you doing? It's almost like we're living in an SNL skit or something.
God, you just said it. It's funny. Diane loves, there's 3 or 4 karaoke songs she wants me to always sing for her, right? I got a horrible voice, but she loves it, and I'll do anything for her, right? So she's Ice Cream Man from Van Halen. She loves that song, and I can actually hammer that one out pretty good. So I get up, and I'm singing at Murray's, our favorite place, and there's a couple of non-regulars there I don't know much about, but it says, I'm your Ice Cream Man, and there's a little bit of break, and I said, not your ice cream woman thing, it, her, it, what, man. Woo! A couple people got up, walked out, and oh yeah, they were not happy. And Mike, the owner, just said, bye, and it's not even redneck. Everybody's in there. But probably, and I don't like to characterize it. I hate conservative, liberal, I think a lot of us are purple now because we don't like Dems, Republicans. None of us really like either one of them.
Right.
Or trust either one of them. But it's just sad that, we're to a point to where somebody can get so upset of not knowing what you identify as. I'm just a human. I'm a man, but I really don't identify as a man. This is what I was born into. I will tell you this though, I had to fill out some information for something with the government not too long ago. And when it comes down to real security issues, they want to know what the hell you are.
Yeah. There's no in between. There's no in between or preferred to not say or any of that. Like you're one or the other.
You're
for sure.
one or the other, and it's sad. But even in the military, is that commentary going on? Is 77%, so nearly 80% of 18 to 24-year-olds will not qualify to enter military service, either mentally or physically.
Wow.
And so you look at our predecessors, you look at the generations before. You look at the people that fought the first Persian Gulf War, going back into Vietnam, Korea, the World War II. I study that. I love history. That's how I ended up getting a master's, is because I just love history and those individuals, those generations knew what it was to have to survive, and I just, something's going to happen sometime in the future where humans are going to have to survive again.
Yep.
We just had a little bit of it here in Big Bear. We had Snowmageddon. My God, Kevin, you live in Montana.
Yep.
I lived in Idaho. I've lived in Big Bear. This is my second time around. 12 years ago, we had even more snow than this, and it hit the news for 5 seconds. It was international news, and we actually had people, the older people generation, were pretty much prepared, and everything was shut down. I had the best winter ever. I was in heaven because we went through 4 cords of wood. Our heater went down the first day of the storms, day 1, and we didn't have a heater back for 35 days. And
wow.
My house was 68 degrees the whole time. Never got cold because I was prepared. We never went out. I like my meals. I like to stay thick and fit.
Right.
We were prepared. We had 6 months of backup. Come on, snow's already gone, right?
Yeah.
But yet we had 30 and 40-year-olds that were completely at a loss of what to do. And they're calling for help because they couldn't get to their hot tub. They wanted EMS to come out and shovel them out.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Then we had people calling up and saying, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't have, I'm vegan, and more power to you. That's great. I love animals, but I enjoy eating them too, and we had them calling and saying, I don't know what to do. I'm down. I have no vegetables left. The only thing in the house is meat and I can't eat it. And literally, you felt okay. I mean, the alternative is if you watch any
You
of the
die.
survival shows, the plant life, the people that just eat plant life die first, or they submit out. Right?
Yep.
They're gone off the show quick. The meat eaters, and this isn't political, but it's like, stop telling me what's wrong and right. Is you're putting vegan leather into cars now, where leather from a cow, once that car is dismantled and put into the, is 10, 15 years later, that leather's gone. It's back to earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're saying it's going to take 500 years for a Tesla seat to disintegrate, if it does.
Wow, that's crazy.
So yeah, cow farts. Okay, there's a lot of buffalo back in the day too, and cow farts affect everything. And I mean, it's just a crazy world, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be a vegan, that's your choice, and I don't trust vegans, but
No,
so,
I mean,
but it's funny because and again, like, make whatever choice you want to make in your life, but understand why you're doing it and understand the whole truth.
Amen.
If you look at the number of products that just from a cow alone, from rubber in your tires to, like, I mean, cosmetics to pretty much, like, there's it's like 400 or 500 different products that you use from a cow. And I've always told, if you want to be a vegan because you think cows, have souls and deserve to live and all that stuff, you need to go work cows for one afternoon, and then you'll realize why we eat them.
Yeah, exactly. And I love cows.
I've worked.
I'm all. Here's a weird thing. I just asked my daughter this. Okay, when you and I were kids, we got milk, and you better drink that milk. We didn't have fresh milk a lot. We just didn't have the money. But when we got, usually you buy milk, and then it had to be gone within a week, or go bad. So just a couple days ago, I go in, I'm like, ooh, I bet that milk's bad, dude. The expiration date on the milk goes to June. What the hell are they doing to milk? So my daughter goes to buy milk, and I said, listen, don't buy cheap shit, dumbass milk. I want good milk. I want milk. They carry one from a farmer down below. And I said, I want that. And she goes, well, why? And I said, it doesn't matter my why. I want that. If you want to use this stuff with all the preservatives in it, it's up to you. And so I said, I want my milk as fresh as possible. And I found this meme, and it had a guy drinking milk right out of the cow, and I said, I want it.
I've done that. I've done that. Yep.
Exactly. And she's like, oh my God, that's gross. And I was like, well, believe it or not, that's how you spent the first 6 months of your life, was drinking right from mom, and
yeah.
Diane, I didn't mean you're a cow.
Yeah. Watch out
there. Don't put words in my mouth, and I'll get my, you'll come after me.
Yeah, there's a brand called Fairlife that does more like sustainable farming and just they're a true agricultural family, but they've done things in a way that is both financially smart, and also they got environmentally smart, and it's healthier and all that. So I am because I'm always trying to cut body fat. I don't drink a lot of milk that I used to drink, but oh man, I can down a gallon of whole milk in like a day. So I just love it.
I just put it in my coffee. That's the only thing I use it in, really. But I don't want that shit. I don't want some. And it's just funny how I look at the world. So I asked my grandma. This is cool. So my grandma turned 70, and her and I just adored her. I mean, I really relate back to my mom too, but my grandma, my mom was beat up for my dad, and she was kind of over it, by the time I came around, And so, I mean, this was embarrassing when I was a kid. I shared a bedroom from the time I was born until the time I was 19 and a half with my grandma.
Wow.
And when I was turned about 13, maturity's coming in. I was like, oh, this is a bummer, because, there's other things I wanted to do, and your grandma was right there, So but by the time I was like 15 and a half, I realized the life lessons. We would sit at night and talk about stuff like this. And sometimes we'd go to bed at 10, and we'd still be talking at midnight with the lights off, and these life lessons she would share. So I remember when she turned 70, I asked her, she goes, man, I just don't recognize the world. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, Renny, everything I was when I was younger is gone. And she goes, it's complicated, and it's this and that. And she goes, it's not technology that bothers me. It's the outlook and how we used to take it was farm to table,
Mm-hmm.
Everything. She goes, look at me. She goes, I'm 70 years old. I eat beef and gravy and potatoes, and I'm skinny. And she
Mm-hmm.
goes, because we can still get when we eat, we can get good food when you want it.
Yep.
And I said, that means by the time I'm 70, I'm not going to recognize the world. She goes, oh, no, no, no. By the time you're 50, you're not going to recognize the world. And I said, did your parents say that to you? And she goes, no, no. The world didn't move as quickly as it's moving. It's moving a lot faster. Kevin, by the time I was 48, 49, man, I didn't recognize, our world had changed so much. And the treatment of people had changed so much that I was blown away. But you know what was amazing? Our unit was in the Rose Parade this year. I didn't see one unhappy face along the parade route when we were there. That was in LA, man. And it gave
Yeah.
me hope.
Yeah.
There's still a good lot of people that are just happy and want to enjoy life. And we saw them that day in the parade. And I remind myself every time I'm going down the 10 freeway or the 91, when I wish I had a rocket launcher on the front of my car,
Yep.
that there are good people out there. And we got to concentrate on that smaller percentage and give our attention to them.
Yeah, because that's what the media wants us to, the media wants us to believe that everybody is a Karen or everybody is a screaming liberal whatever, or a, rioter or, conservative rioter that hates everybody and wants to kill everybody. And, it's just not the truth. Like I'm so distrustful now of anything that comes out of, our government and the media and all that. That's that famous Ronald Reagan line that says it's like the eight scariest words that you can hear, which is I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. Yeah. And so it's just, over the last couple of years with everything that's happened, and I always used to wonder, it's like, why are these old people so pissy and frustrated and saying how this younger generation is this and everything's changed? And I never really put much, credit to it, but now I'm like, I get it. And it gets worse. I feel like it's getting worse every year. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old, but that's kind of where we're at.
It's again, I'll take it back to my grandma and I had. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. This is how blunt my grandma was. Okay. My best friend, Rich, I mentioned him earlier, the helicopter pilot, best friend in the world. Love this guy. Kissy on the cheeks every time I see him. Total boy crush on my best friend, right?
Right.
Anything in the world for him. He's half Puerto Rican, half Italian. And my grandpa was from Southern Italy. So dark skin, little mustache, looks a lot like my grandpa. Well, my grandma has always had a crush on my buddy, Rich. Always. And she was not, it would humiliate me. We'd walk in and he'd call her, we called her Nana. And he'd say, hey, Nana. And she'd go, oh, hello, Rich. And I was like, man, knock it off, man. I mean, come on, really? You're 16 years old, right? So he's shipping out. The first Persian Gulf War is going on. He's getting ready to ship out. My grandma's starting to get sick, right? He didn't know. So he comes over. And she's sitting there, and he looks at her and he goes, hey, Nana, is there anything I can do before I leave? And she looks over at me, and I went, oh, shit. What's she say now? And she looks at me, and she goes, I haven't gotten laid ever. And she goes, a girl needs some love, Rich. And Rich looks at me, and I go, dude, you're not doing my grandma. I mean, and she looks at Rich, and she goes, don't pay attention to him, Rich. Eye contact. Come on, we got something going here. Come on, let's broker a deal out. And I'm like, you guys, I just left. I was like, you know what? And he comes out and he goes, I didn't do anything. I was like, oh, what do you mean you didn't do anything? I mean, come on, dude, it's my grandma,
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I asked her this, Kevin. I said, hey, what do you see in the generations? She goes, the younger generation's in trouble. And she goes, you were the first ones that got your ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, I pity you because I don't think you're going to grow old and see your life. You need to place yourself somewhere that's got like values as you age, because if you don't, it's going to drive you nuts.
Yep. 100%. Well, I've taken up a ton of your time today. This has been super interesting. I feel like we could do like a Joe Rogan level 4-hour podcast here, Kevin, it's just,
I love what you're doing. I love everything that you're doing with this. I'll lower this camera down a little bit. Just the energy. I think that there's nothing wrong with men coming together and kind of speaking. As a lot of
Yep.
times is that we count on each other, and so we're kind of doing a like thing. It's pretty cool. It's aimed at blue collar because that's I spent a little time in white collar side of it, but my roots are blue collar for sure. But blue collar entrepreneurship, blue collar millionaires,
Yep.
is that
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you're not a blue collar millionaire, we want to help get you there. And
Yeah.
a lot of people think when they I definitely did when I was 19, sold my first company. Thought, yeah, man, by the time I'm 25, multi-millions. Didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah.
But if you're into
I've made and spent millions, I could tell you that for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm good at that. But it's this as much as I do, is that guys that are more senior than you, all we want to do is, for those that will listen, is get you there a little sooner and a little smoother, and put the brakes on maybe some mistakes you're making or
Yep.
some errors in judgment that you're making, and then just freaking give you jet fuel for the things that you're doing right. And so we're real excited about introducing this. We're theming it, and it's just an extension of what we do, and it's just, but it's aimed at who we truly are, and that's blue collar.
Yeah, I've had a white collar existence for a long time, but I'm blue collar at my roots, and we're involved in so much of, especially on the female side, with the trades, right? Like my wife has done multiple, car builds, and she's a welder now, and we're all about the trades and especially women in trades. But yeah, it's all blue collar, and dude, to hear these stories of these women that are making, 7 figures welding or running a welding business or,
Right.
Automotive business or whatever, it can be done. Blue collar. We look down for whatever reason. If you're not signed up to go to college, and coming onto debt, then and if you don't have a white collar job or engineering job or whatever, somehow you're less than. Like Mike Rowe says, he says, they call it higher education to demean people that don't go.
Right. Which exactly, I've got two for you. Look at you look at our daughters, your daughters.
Yep.
My daughter, what they're doing. My daughter's a helicopter pilot. That's, I don't know what the percentage is, but high 90s of male. Right.
Yeah.
And she's got to fight for every square inch of air she gets. Right.
Yep.
Diane she's in the industry. She's got her own thing, military, all these different. I've watched it firsthand. But it's a good friend of mine started up a landscaping company, mowing lawns when we were kids, teenagers. He just sold that company for like $8 million.
Jeez. Yeah.
He turned it into a little, and in blue collars you can get. But was he blue collar? Yeah, he's blue collar. I would beg to differ. Most MBA graduates, including myself with a master's, this guy just went off the rails crazy in his business, and he built a nice life, and that's what. Same with mine. I look at you though. You're not quite white collar. The things you build, the cars, the barns, buildings. All shit you do is, I can't do that. I don't have the talent to do it.
I can't either. It's all fake. I have people like, that come from the television studios and come build everything for me.
Yeah. Bullshit. I've seen you do it. So now, okay. So Michelle, welding. Okay.
So what's crazy for her is, we all know SEMA, right? And a lot of people that are listening to this probably don't. It's the Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association, largest automotive trade show in the world. But one of the goals for all builders is to have a vehicle at SEMA. Well, she's been involved in 3 separate builds that she doesn't own, and her Jeep has been in SEMA twice.
Dang.
So she's had 5 SEMAs across 4 vehicles that she's had a vehicle in. And so through all that stuff with doing those all female builds, she was around a lot of welders and builders and painters, and they're all women. And so she really took an interest to doing welding. So she actually went out to Lincoln Welder School in where is it? Indianapolis or Cleveland. It's actually in Cleveland, Ohio. And spent a week out there just kind of learning some stuff. And then this last winter, she did a TIG welding class, which is kind of like TIG aluminum, which is like, other than titanium, it doesn't get much more kind of difficult than doing TIG welding. And women, side note, women tend to be much better TIG welders because it's a two-handed operation. You're feeding that rod into the to the heat. And she just did awesome at it. So we're this 3,400 square foot shop. She's letting me have enough room to park the Cobra, and she gets the rest. So awesome. She's got a full panel. She's got 250 amp 220s and 330 amp 220s just for her little area that I wired up for her. So that's kind of her hobby. And we're going to Moab in a couple weeks where she'll drive me around Moab in her Jeep and I'll make sandwiches. So
there you go.
That's my role.
I'll come down. I'll take and bring our grill and I'll grill with you.
There you go, man. Anytime.
So
you guys, you need to come visit.
So there's our
there you go.
rig right there. And so
nice.
I was supposed to be with Jason Rose a couple weeks ago, but we had some vehicle problems, which was a blessing because Diana had an allergic reaction to something she ate.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But it was weird. We don't know. She's going through testing because, man, she works for the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She called me up. She goes, Renny, I'm breaking down hives, but my airway's being compromised. And I said, where are you at? She goes, well, I just ran to the store to go grab some Benadryl. And I didn't tell her there. And I said, okay, go in there, drink it right in the aisle. And then I want you to call me all the way until you're back either home or back at work. So she gets back at work and she goes, yeah, I'm feeling much better. I said, I'm not sure if you're thinking this, but you had a whole shop full of paramedics. 14 seconds away from you. And none of the office staff even thought about sending her back to have the paramedics check her out. So she's driving with her airway starting to restrict to Walgreens, to pick up medication. So, next time you just, she went to OU, I went to Boise State. So, international sign for OU is, choking. And so she's comfortable with that now. But
there you go.
How cool is this, man? I just applaud you for getting this thing going and off the ground. And you're always doing innovative stuff. And this is, I think it's a great, thing for us to come together and support one another because it seems like there's a lot of support going out there for everything else that's going on right now in the world and for every other group except for dudes. I mean, I think if you're a dude, is that sometimes we've just been, it is. I mean, facing it with our daughters and stuff. I mean, it's a man's world, but not so much anymore. But
yeah, we tend to be the evil, either stupid or evil. That's our kind of our two identities that we get to have.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I'm excited for you to much success with this. And
thanks, brother.
I can't wait to come back on and talk more man shop stuff with you. And we got to get up to Montana and come see you guys.
Absolutely. We got no kids in the house anymore, so we got plenty of room. We got the shop. You and Diane can take the Cobra out and go play around in that thing. That's always fun.
You won't get it back. She's not going to give it back to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some days I just let you have it.
There you go.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you, and thanks for taking the time to do this. You have a great day. Enjoy riding on Rip, and hope you guys have a great afternoon.
Take care. We'll see you soon.
All right.